Ole Miss defense powers number 16 Rebels to huge 28-10 win over number 3 Georgia. In a stunning upset, number 16 Ole Miss knocked off number 3 Georgia 28-10 on Saturday, delivering a blow to the Bulldogs' college football playoff hopes and shaking up the SEC title race. The Rebels, 8-2, 4-2 SEC, clinched their first-ever home victory over a team ranked in the top 2 of the AP Top 25. Fueled by a dominant defensive performance and a gutsy effort from quarterback Jaxson Dart. Georgia's 7-2, 5-2 SEC comeback hopes ended with 7:22 left in the game when Carson Beck's fourth down pass was intercepted by Ole Miss John Saunders Jr. The Bulldogs had gone for it on 4th and 10 from the Ole Miss 27-yard line. But Beck's pass was tipped before Saunders made the pick and wisely slid to the turf to end Georgia's chances. After the interception, Ole Miss sealed the win with a 28-yard run by Dart. Despite the senior quarterback playing through a painful ankle injury, Dart's run set up a field goal that pushed the Rebels' lead to 15 points with just over 3 minutes remaining. And Georgia had no timeouts left to mount a final drive. Dominant defensive performance by Ole Miss. The victory was a statement from Ole Miss, particularly on defense. The Rebels had been thoroughly outplayed by Georgia in 2023, losing 52-17 in Athens. But this year's defense looked completely different. Lane Kiffin's offseason focus on bolstering his defensive line through the transfer portal paid off. Ole Miss entered the game leading the SEC in sacks and added 5 more against Georgia on Saturday. The defensive line pressured Beck throughout the game, and Georgia's usually potent ground game was shut down. The Bulldogs managed only 59 rushing yards on 33 carries, with Ole Miss pass rush contributing heavily to the struggles. Less than a year ago, Georgia had averaged nearly 10 yards per carry in this matchup. On Saturday, they couldn't get anything going on the ground. Dart's gutsy performance. The game didn't start well for Ole Miss. Dart was sacked on the second play, injuring his left ankle in the process. After a brief spell in the locker room, Dart returned, but on the next series, his pass was intercepted by Georgia's Dan Jackson after he was pressured. With Georgia taking a 7-0 lead, Ole Miss turned to freshman Austin Simmons, who led a touchdown drive in relief. Dart returned and played the rest of the game despite clearly being limited by his injury. Dart showed poise and toughness, finishing the game with 199 yards passing on 13 of 22 attempts and a touchdown pass to Juice Wells. Dart was also Ole Miss' leading rusher, contributing 61 yards on the ground and displaying his ability to move the ball when the offense needed it most. Georgia's offensive struggles. Despite having one of the top offenses in the country, Georgia's attack struggled in this loss. Beck, who entered the season as a Heisman candidate, continued his inconsistent play. He was intercepted and fumbled during the game, and the Bulldogs also committed 2 more turnovers, including a fumble by running back Nate Frazier. These mistakes were compounded by the lack of an explosive playmaker in the Georgia offense, a notable absence compared to previous seasons when stars like Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, and George Pickens were in the fold. Georgia's offense hasn't been as dominant against top-tier SEC competition this season, struggling in losses to Alabama and Texas. And the absence of a high-caliber playmaker in the passing game was glaring in this game. SEC title race and playoff implications. The loss drops Georgia to 7-2 and eliminates them from the driver's seat in the SEC East. With the Bulldogs now facing an uphill battle, their path to the SEC championship game and the college football playoff will require them to win out, starting with a critical home game against number 7 Tennessee next week. For Ole Miss, this win boosts their own CFP hopes and keeps them firmly in contention for a New Year's Six bowl berth. The Rebels have one more tough SEC game remaining, but with the win over Georgia, they've shown that they can compete with the best in the conference. This game also muddles the SEC title race, with multiple teams vying for playoff spots and the SEC championship. Ole Miss, Alabama, and potentially even Tennessee remain in the mix for a shot at the title, while Georgia now faces a must-win scenario in the final stretch of the season.